Okay, so in the video today we're going to see how the scan and cut machine performs doing some embossing on some parchment paper. We can either use the embossing tools that come in Brother's own embossing kits, or we're going to use a few other options. You can see the full details of what pens will work for doing this process in the previous video that I have had loaded. We're going to make this card. I did feel that the colours of the white where the parchment stretched isn't showing up so well on that yellow background, so today we're going to use a green background onto our card. We're going to attach it by putting some little split pins. You can add some little circular dots of paper afterwards, just glue those on so nobody pricks their fingers on it when they receive the card. That's what we're going to be making. Okay, so like I say, I've pre-cut and I've already put my mat. We made that the last video yesterday. I've pre-cut my parchment ready to size. That is all on the mat ready to go. Basically put it on the mat, gave it a little rub with the brayer to get it nice and smooth, and then that way you won't need any extra tape to hold it down. For the wider lines we're going to use the nail tool pen. This would be what you would use for little dots if ever you bother doing manicuring. You can see I don't. I use mine for crafting instead. So much more fun. So yeah, check the video yesterday to see how you get that so that it fits. Even though this is a very thin one, we can get that to fit in, but there is a knack for taking it out. Make sure you check the video and find out so you don't damage anything. That's set to the right height. So that's the one we're going to use first. I'm just going to pop them in the machine ready. The other ones we're going to use is an empty glue pen in the foil holder for the foil kit to trick the machine into thinking it's an embossing tool. The same goes for the universal pen holder. We need to just put a little bit of tape over that one slot. You see there's two slots in there because the embossing tool only has one slot. So if we pop that over it, the machine now thinks it's an embossing tool and we can access the features on the scan and cut machine. For an even finer line, the Cricut scoring pen in the Fun Prints, I can never say that. You need to make an easier name for it there, Michelle. So yeah, 3D Fun Prints holder. Yeah, okay. It's a little bit finer, but it's not too pointy that it's going to go through, so I think that kind of works really well for nice detailed works. Okay, so I've preloaded a USB stick into my machine. It's got the files on. There's going to be a link in the description below so that you can get a copy of this file. So my mat's preloaded, so I'm going to go pull in the pattern, save data, and it's on my machine. There's going to be 6 broken apart files and one file where all 6 elements are on the same mat. For the scan and cut machine, it kind of works better if you bring them in individually, I feel anyway, especially if you want to do different thicknesses of lines, bring them individually. So it can't really see any pictures. That rectangle frame is just basically a double line with slightly rounded corners on it, and there's a square one the same. We have a sentiment, we have a flower, and then we have 2 frames that have got leaves. I'm going to be using the rectangle one, so I'll bring that onto the mat. Now I know for my paper, my parchment paper I've cut, it needs to be a little bit smaller. Let me just check my note. I've got a note next to me. It needs to be 113 millimetre fit onto my piece. That's it. So okay, and we're going to scan the mat, and then that will show us exactly where our parchment is on our mat. Okay, I'm just going to pull my machine forward a little bit. There we go, we're a bit more in the... That's it, I just need a little bit more space behind. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that into position. if you have trouble locating it, my eyes aren't the best these days. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and put that as central as we can. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so can you see at the moment we've got add, save, and we've got a blank space here. That will happen if you haven't already activated the embossing feature on the machine. Like I say, you don't need the kit to do this, but if you just go to the last page of your settings, your little spanner tool, you'll get premium functions. We just turn the embossing kit on. Okay, and then we go back, we've got this little cube that will then access any premium functions on our machine. So we're going to do line embossing, and for the settings we're using the 3mm tool, so we need to give that just a little bit of pressure. So we're going to up it to number 4, say OK, and we're going to tell it to emboss. And if I take you down there, once I press go, you'll see the machine do a little bit of magic. That's it. Okay, let's take you back up to the screen to show you the next process. Okay, so this works really well if we wanted to have been doing a file where we've got want to do different layers of foil as well. It can definitely work this way. Okay, so I need to go back to our mat, so our screen where we see our full mat, and I'm going to say add again from my USB stick, and I'm going to bring in the flower, say OK, and then before we delete that border I want to bring that in again. I think I'm going to just bring that down in size a little bit. Yep. Zoom in and we'll see what we've got. Yeah, could have stayed a little bit bigger, but we'll go with that. And we're going to go OK. We're going to have to go back to our screen. We're going to select the frame because we've already made that, and we're going to delete it, but that will be leaving our flower in the right place. So I'll say OK. Now this time I want to be using the, which one will I do? I think I'll use the finer tool for this. We can always add extra shadings on by hand afterwards, but we're going to be able to give ourselves our flower outline perfectly. So we're going to use the Cricut tool and pop that in. That's going to act a little bit funny to start with, so I'll leave you on the screen so you see what's happening. Again, we're going to go to that cube, line embossing, and we're going to need to bring that pressure down because it's got a bit more of a point. I've found pressure of -1 seems to work pretty well with this. So we're going to say emboss OK. Now this time when we press play, it's not going to accept it. It's going to tell us to attach the appropriate holder because it recognises it's not a brother tool that we've got in there. We just press OK and then we tell it to go again. It will then accept it. Move it down so you can see it moving, doing its magic. So you can see what we're at so far. So we've got our frame and we've got our flower. Okay, so I'll take it back up to the screen and then you can see again, I'll take you through what we need to do to add the next layer. Perfect. Let's get that tool out ready. Okay, so we're going to tell it we're finished and we're going to go back and add a new one, save data. And we'll bring in our sentiment this time. Oh, okay. Our sentiment's going to be going down there. I'd say it's probably going to be there somewhere. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask the machine just to scan so we can just double check where we've put that. Okay, let's zoom in and just have a double check that we're not going over any of the... Yeah, it's a bit close there, isn't it? I'm just going to move him over. Again, I think I might just drop that size down just a little bit. I think I sized these to go on to straight onto a 5x7 card, but obviously because I've done an extra matte layer, just bring it down a bit. Okay, so we're going to go back to that flower because we've already done it, and we're going to bin that. That's good. We're going to be using our foiling, our embossing feature again, and this time I'm going to use the glue pen in the foil holder. So I'll just pop that inside. Now, I found the best setting for this on my machine anyway is to have 0 pressure, which would be the same pressure as the 1.5mm embossing tool would be. But of course every machine's different, so just run a test before you do that. Emboss. We're going to tell it to go. And we'll watch the last one go through. Excellent. So that's all done. So I'm just going to unload my mat there. Close up the machine. Move that out of the way. And then I like to take that off the mats. You can see it shows up really nicely on the very dark background. You see what I mean about a darker background is a bit better than the lighter background. So to take it off, this is why I've got creases on this. I like to just roll the mat away. I'd rather roll the mats. Oops, that's ripped slightly. So maybe a slightly lighter pressure would have been good for that. So that's ripped a little bit there, but we'll go with that for this run anyway. So I don't think it will show too much when it's on. So maybe drop it down to even a -1 pressure for that pen as well. I've always found at 0 it's been perfect previously, not this time. Okay, so I'm going to just flip him over and work on the back and add just a little bit of colour, little watercolour pens. It doesn't need too much, otherwise you won't see the white line work if you put too much colour there. It just gives it a little bit of interest, otherwise the card can look just a little bit flat. I know you can get special paints for going on the parchment, but then you need to work on the front side with those. I do have some of those, but I've never really used them that much, so I find this option just a little bit easier. If you do go outside the lines and you're working on the back, it shows up a lot less of a mistake. I suppose in reality you could have this as the front side, you just have to mirror the sentiments. Just tend to show up white marks a lot more on the front. Don't know, is that my pen must be leaking. I got ink on myself yesterday and I've just got it on there as well. Okay, so that's that coloured in. Just going to see if I can find a baby wipe and wipe my fingers off. Don't want to get that ink on anything. Yeah, pen's definitely leaking. Need to sort that one out, don't we? Oh my goodness. Smoker's fingers now. And I've never touched one in my life. Okay. So, again, on the back, we'll just add a little bit of colour into our flower. I did pink on the other one. I thought a bit of orange might be nice on this one. It's supposed to be a magnolia flower. Magnolias, they tend to be pinks, don't they, I think? I can't remember. Maybe they come in different colours. As long as you're enjoying doing it, there's no rules as far as I'm concerned anyway. See, I'm not being overly careful, so if you took your time you're probably going to get a nicer effect than that. I'll get the dreaded leaky green pen back. I'll hold it up a bit further. I've missed a few bits here. Let's leave that. My off screen. There we go. And I'll just give him a little bit of yellow into the middle. Okay. So we've just got a little bit of colour on. So I'll bring in my card pre-cut. Line him up. Okay. Where did my pokey tool? It's looking at me. I'm just going to poke a little hole in 2 of the corners. Split pin in. narrow the corners. Poke a bit further because it's a bit hard to get those ones in. That goes in a bit easier. Right, there's the little rascal gone. There it is. Marvellous. Like I say, maybe a little circle of card on each one of those glued just to finish it off. And we had a little bit of an incident there where it's gone through. Just pop it. That's it. So maybe just a slightly lower pressure, but it certainly showed up really nicely on that darker card. Okay, so feel free to pop along, go and grab yourself a copy of the file, and I'd love to see what you do and see if you come up with any different compositions. You can resize some ideas. You could resize your frame up and down so that frame literally just goes around your sentiments, and then have your flower bigger on the side. So lots of things you can change around on that. Be able to do the rectangle cards or the square cards. Love to see what you do. Please show me some pictures. Thanks for watching. Bye.